Hi everyone, and welcome to another one of our MStranslate Facebook Live videos. Just waiting for some things to kick in here. So as always, I'm just going to give a little bit of time for a few people to join. We can see that we've already got a number of people coming through, which is fantastic. Just get myself set up. So if you are in now, I can already see that there's a number of people in the stream. Please do say hi. Let me know who's watching. I can just see that there are people watching. I don't know who you are. Welcome, Kathy. Glad you can join us. Thanks for being here. For other people who are on board tonight, please do say hi. Let me know who you are. Also, I just want to say to start with, we have got automatically generated captions turned on for tonight. So this is a new option that we have through Facebook for these live videos. So hopefully that does make the discussion easier to follow and makes it a little bit more accessible. As I said, these captions are automatically generated, so we don't have control over them. So hopefully it is accurately representing what I'm saying. Though I'm sure there will be a few mistakes along the way, but please do give us some feedback on those captions as well. Let us know if it is helpful for us to have them turned on, if it's more distracting than anything else, if it's not doing a good job of lining up. Please do give us some feedback on that so that we do know whether or not this is something we should keep doing for all of our Facebook Live videos. As always, you know, what we do is very dependent on the feedback that we receive from you. So please do give us feedback on that as well as anything else. So I can see that we have a lot of people watching at the moment, which is fantastic. Hi, Jody. Hi, Tony. Hi, Erin. Hi, Amber. Hi, Kylie. If you are new to MStranslate, and I know that some of the people in that list are new, I've seen that you're new likes to MStranslate over the past few days. Welcome. Extend a very warm welcome to you. Thank you for coming to join us here. Interested to know how you heard about MStranslate, what encouraged you to like the page. Please do let me know and let us know where you're coming in from. It's always interesting to know where our audience is tuning in from. I think we're going to have a really interesting discussion tonight. So as I mentioned already, that the reason for the Facebook Live tonight is really to talk a little bit about the study that we posted just over a week ago now, which was around the mRNA vaccine and its potential as a therapy for multiple sclerosis, because having been following the story closely and seeing that a few days after we posted about it, it started to get attention through mainstream media, and there were a lot of other articles, that it seems to have generated quite a bit of confusion. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to try and answer any questions that you may have, as well as clear up some of the misconceptions that I've seen posted online. So we'll be doing that. If this is your first time joining, this is a hugely interactive event. The whole point of these Facebook Live videos is to allow me to really answer your questions. So if you do have any questions along the way, all you need to do is just type them in the comments box. I will make sure that I respond to every question that's posted, and we'll get through them. We will have some time at the end to talk about some more general MS research stuff as well, so I'll make sure that I answer any other questions that people have about that. Hi, Debbie. Kathy, I watch everything with captions. Appreciate it so much to have trouble without them. Thanks for the captions. You're welcome. So I guess you were one of the main ones to give us that feedback a while ago, so you'll know now that we do captions for all of the interviews that we do and all of the other videos that we've been publishing. This is the first time we're trying it with the live video, so it's somewhat different because we do the other captions ourselves and proofread them to check that they're all okay, whereas in this case we don't have that control, so we'll see how it goes. Erin calling in from Canberra. Welcome, Erin. Welcome, Leanne. Oh, and look, people in here knowing each other, that's fantastic. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves as well. Say hi to everyone. It's good to have a nice little community here. So I guess, firstly, because I do know we have a number of new people in, I shouldn't just assume that everyone knows who I am. So let me give a really quick introduction to who I am, and then we'll launch into talking about that study. So my name is Brett, and I am one of the co-founders of MStranslate, the other co-founder being Eric, who is my brother, and you will see him posting comments in the comment section as well, and helping when we're sharing links. So he's in the background doing all of that stuff. And my background is in MS research, but I also have a lot of background working as a science communicator. And so really what I'm doing, and my reasons behind MStranslate, is to take all of the research that's going on into MS around the world and present it to you, the MS community, in a way that's easily accessible and easy to understand. But importantly, as I guess we're going to be talking about tonight, having the research background allows me to make sure that everything that we communicate is accurate and hopefully clear as well. And that's sometimes lacking, and that sometimes causes confusion. And so we're going to try and clear that stuff up. So that's who I am for anyone who just joined and wondered who I was. Hopefully that helps clear that up. And if you do have any general questions, if you are new and you have general questions about MStranslate, feel free to ask that as well as we go through. So let's start by talking about this big mRNA vaccine study that we published a video on about a week ago. So first thing I want to ask to everyone that's watching at the moment, feel free to just list a comment here, just a really quick answer. Who knows the study that I'm talking about? Who watched the MStranslate video, the summary video that I did, or has read about it elsewhere? I'm just going to give a minute or so. I just am interested before I start going into my discussion about it. Can you let me know, one, if you know the study that I'm talking about, two, if you saw my video, or three, if you heard about it elsewhere online? I'm just going to give, I feel like I'm a teacher at the moment. I'm just going to give you a minute to respond. So I'm just interested to know that, to know if we need to go right back to the beginning, or if everyone's coming into it with a bit of an idea as to the sort of research that I'm talking about. Jody, you read about it elsewhere. Kylie just watched your video before this one. Okay, fantastic. Debbie watched the video. Colleen read about it on Facebook. Erin read about it. She know about the study. Okay, great. What I will get Eric to do, as he's watching, probably helpful for later. Don't disappear now to go and watch it, but I'll get Eric to post the link to the video on YouTube that we've done before, just so people can watch it after we do this, if they want a summary of this research. Kathy, I was just before I start talking about the mRNA vaccine study, I just was asking people whether they knew about the study and if they'd watched my summary video or had read about it elsewhere online. Maureen read about it. Okay, fantastic. So a lot of people here seem to know about it. There's the link to ours. As I said, don't disappear and watch it now. You can watch it later. I'm going to talk through a lot of what's in that video anyway, but just as a good reference point, that's there. So a lot of people seem to know about it, which is fantastic. And it is something that's generated a lot of interest. And we saw that with our summary, and I saw that in other groups that I've been a part of, seeing people talk about it. So I'm just going to really cover what I covered in the video to start with, and then we'll go into a few more details and answer any questions that you have. If you do already have questions on this study that you're interested, feel free to post them now. I'll do my little spiel first, but I will come back to all of the questions that are posted. So I guess the starting point for all of this, and this is how I started the video as well, was to talk a little bit about what an mRNA vaccine is and what mRNA is. So a lot of people probably know that in all of our cells we have DNA, which is our genetic material, and this genetic material is the code that makes us who we are, and it's comes from our parents, and that's inherited along the way. That code is like a plan. It's like a diagram for a house. It doesn't actually do anything itself necessarily. What does all of the functions in the body are proteins, and you probably you will have heard about proteins before, and you will have heard us talk about specific proteins in relation to multiple sclerosis. But proteins are what go off and do a lot of the functions in the body. The code for those proteins to tell them how to be made is in DNA. It's in our genetic material. Where mRNA fits in is it's the step in between. So the DNA gets read, essentially, that someone reads that code gets read, and that gets converted into mRNA, which then the code in the mRNA gets read to make the protein. So it's just the step in between. And so what happens in these mRNA vaccines is that they can use it in a way to deliver the code to make a certain protein that might be of interest. So I guess we've heard a lot about mRNA vaccines because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is where a lot of the misconceptions are coming up about. And so that will be talked about a little bit. But the COVID-19 vaccines are the first approved vaccines that are mRNA-based vaccines. And in those cases, they've used the mRNA for proteins to do with the virus to generate an immune response. So in that instance, the vaccine is working in that it allows the body's immune system to experience the virus in a way that it won't get sick, because it's only just a little part of it, so that next time, if we do get infected, the immune system's ready to respond quicker. And so, in the case of these, the symptoms don't develop because we deal with the virus a lot better. Now, the one that we're talking about here for multiple sclerosis is a very different type of vaccine, and I guess the first point is that it's a different vaccine. It is not the COVID-19 vaccine. They are very separate. They are completely different. And I saw, because of the way a lot of the articles were written and the way they were framed online, it made a lot of people think that this study and what was being referred to here was the COVID vaccine. I need to be really clear on this to make sure that people understand that we are talking about something completely different. The COVID-19 mRNA vaccines that are now being rolled out around the world will not be effective at all in treating multiple sclerosis. That's not what they're designed to do. So we're not talking here about, I've seen people talking about, they'll go and get that vaccine now because they think it'll treat MS, or, vice versa. We're not talking any discussions around whether or not you get the COVID-19 vaccine. Should be done with your healthcare professional. That's not at all what we're talking about. But this is a completely different vaccine. In terms of what they're doing in this study, the mRNA that they used was for myelin proteins. Okay, so proteins that make up that insulating sheath that surrounds nerves. And what we know is that in multiple sclerosis, there are proteins in that sheath that get attacked by the immune system, and that's what causes the damage. Okay, that's what we see in multiple sclerosis. That myelin gets attacked, gets damaged, and that's what leads to a lot of the symptoms and progression and disability that happens over time. So what they did in this study, and let's be really clear that at the moment this study was done just in an animal model of multiple sclerosis. Okay, So this was done in mice where they induced a disease that mimics MS. So what they did was that they took these myelin mRNA for these myelin proteins, and they used that to create this vaccine. Now this is working in a very different way, okay? Because if you think back to what we just said about the COVID vaccine, that COVID vaccine was developed to initiate an immune response. Now, obviously, that's not what we want in MS at all. We're not trying to get the immune system to react. And in fact, in this case, they're doing the exact opposite. So with the way it was developed, essentially what happens, and I won't go into the mechanisms now, if people want to know, they can ask, but essentially what happens is that the use of this mRNA vaccine for MS leads to tolerance. Okay, so the immune system sees these myelin proteins that are made from the mRNA, but instead of getting turned on to react against it, instead of being activated to destroy it, in fact, the complete opposite happens. And what this does is it turns them off. It tells them to, it essentially gives them a signal to say, this is self, these are self proteins, we don't want you to attack this. And so they become tolerant. Okay, and this is mimicking a process that actually is meant to happen during development. So the reason why we don't develop lots and lots and lots of autoimmune diseases, and why most people don't develop autoimmune diseases, is because we have a process during development where self proteins, so myelin for example, but lots of other self proteins in the body, are shown to the immune system, and anything that does react against it is deleted. Okay, or in certain situations are made tolerant, so they're still there but they don't react. And so that's what's happening. That was the whole reason for this study. So they were trying to see whether that could happen. And what they found in this animal model, what they found in the mice was two things. They tried giving it in advance of the disease. So inject with the vaccine and then try and induce disease. And when they saw that, they had groups of mice, one who received the vaccine, one who didn't. What they saw is that the mice who had received the vaccine still developed disease, but that the onset of that disease was delayed. So there was something there in the vaccine that was helping to slow it or to stop it from happening. It still ended up happening. Okay, so it's not like a vaccine that we might have talked about before, where it stops you from getting sick at all. In this instance, it didn't do that, but it certainly did delay it. They also then tried to do it after the mice had already got the disease. So the mice, two groups of mice, they've both developed this MS-like disease, both developed MS, the animal model of MS, and then they're given the vaccine. And what they saw, one group is given the vaccine and the other isn't. And what they saw from those results was that the ones who received the treatment, this mRNA vaccine, did have clinical improvements. So they had reduced paralysis, for example. And so they saw that it could be an effective treatment for a period of time after having been given. Now, there's lots that we still need to know about it. But so this was showing potential in both of those ways to show that, could this actually be a novel treatment approach for multiple sclerosis. And what they found, just as my last little point, and please do now, I hope this has made sense. Please let me know in the comments if this has cleared things up and if it makes sense. If you have any questions, please do ask them. But so what they found was that the reason that this can work is that it also shifted the immune profile that they saw. So certain cells that help dampen down the immune response that we know are much lower in people with MS actually were raised up, and the ones that were causing the damage were lowered. So they saw that there was this shift which was creating a better environment, and that seemed to line up with the results that they saw here. So that's sort of my summary of what the work is, and I'm happy to answer questions on that now. If people have questions, they want me to explain more of that, want to know more about potential and those sort of things, please do ask. So I can see Colleen, wouldn't it be great if they could help us with MS? Yeah, I mean, it's I guess the goal of all of it, and all I can say about that is that having been in research myself, and now working closely with a lot of researchers as part of what I do for MStranslate, getting to sit in conferences and hear about the work that's going on around the world. What I can say is that people are working incredibly hard, and they are incredibly dedicated to try and make a difference to the lives of people living with MS. We all want, to find more parts of the puzzle, to start figuring out how those pieces of the puzzle fit together, and then, in the end, lead to better treatments, perhaps one day in the future a cure, but really just to find ways to improve the quality of life of people living with MS. I promise you that everyone working in this space is very dedicated to that and trying as hard as they can. Annette, thanks for clarifying. How hard is it to transfer these tests into humans? Great question. So this is the next step, and I think there are questions around that in terms of how successful is this going to be in human trials. So I guess one of the advantages of this animal model is that generally what happens is that the disease is initiated by injecting the mice with a myelin protein, with a certain part of the myelin protein that they know if they inject it, it will lead to them developing this disease. That's how they are able to use this model. And so in that case, they know the target. So they knew what the immune system was reacting to, because that's the way the model had been generated. And so they used mRNA that was against that target. So in humans, that's going to be a bit more difficult, because while we have some studies that have shown us potential targets, and there are multiple potential targets that have been identified, we don't quite know the exact targets, and we don't know how that will work in each individual. So there is some difficulty around that. That's one of the biggest stepping stones at the moment in terms of how easy this will be to translate across to humans. What I can say around that, and this is a little surprising to me, and I don't quite understand how this is the case yet. I want to do a bit more reading on it. But what they did find really interestingly in these mice is that they gave them the mRNA vaccine for a specific protein. Okay, and they did a few different ones, but in each experiment it was just for one specific protein. What they saw was that somehow the tolerance that was built up went beyond that specific protein. It seemed that the mice who received it got what they called bystander tolerance. So as well as becoming tolerant to that specific protein, they also became tolerant to other myelin proteins. Now that's really interesting. I don't quite understand how that works yet. I've got some thoughts and theories, but they're certainly not concrete. They're really just opinions at the moment, and I've been thinking quite a bit about it. And I will continue to do so and see what I can come up with. But if that's the case, then that problem that I talked about in terms of in people living with MS that we don't know the target, maybe that would help deal with that a little bit, because you would be able to get a vaccine that may protect against multiple at once because of this bystander effect. We don't know any of that yet. It's far too early to know. That's one of the big ones though in terms of what's happening with that. I guess the The other thing really just to say is a very general comment in that, a lot of research that occurs in mice doesn't end up translating into humans, and there's just a multitude of reasons for that, really around the fact that just humans are much more complicated. And at an individual level, there's a lot more things that are going on. These initial experiments are being done in very controlled circumstances. Okay, they're animals in a lab. We've got very similar genetics. There's no other external factors that are coming in to deal with it. So, a high percentage of things that look promising in animal models don't translate across to human models. Now, that's not to say this won't, but it's just to provide a realistic perspective of there are still a lot to overcome. We're certainly not at the point now where we can go, yes, this is definitely going to work in humans, and this will be a treatment. I would love to be able to say that, but that's just not the case. We don't know yet. We have to wait for that to happen. Jody, that's very exciting. What is the next stage now, and how long does a process research like this take? Another excellent question. It's difficult to answer. So without knowing the research team directly, and I will be getting in touch because I'd love for them to come and do a Q&A like this. If you're interested in hearing from the researchers that did this study, let me know. If we can show them that we have a large percentage of our community who wants to hear from them, that's always handy to be able to convince someone to get involved. So I don't know, I could see it going a couple of ways. I mean, if they were happy with their animal model results, then it would potentially go into early stage clinical trials. Clinical trials have a number of different steps to them, and the first one is a phase 1 clinical trial, and really that's just would be to look at the safety of an approach like this in humans. Now, these are often not people living with MS. These are often just in healthy individuals, just to test that safety. It differs from different studies, but often it's like that. And then assuming that it's safe, then it proceeds on to do a small test in people living with MS to see again whether it's safe in that population and whether there is any effectiveness. If so, it moves into a slightly larger one, and then the phase 3 clinical trial is the big one where they have a large cohort of people living with MS. Obviously, some of them get the treatment, others don't, and they test the effectiveness there. Now, they may decide that they need more evidence before they go down that path. I don't know necessarily if we're at the stage yet where off the back of this paper that can go directly in. They may want some more results out of an animal model. They may want to understand things a bit better. They may want to tweak things a bit better before they go down that path. But that's the general sort of pipeline that we're looking at. In terms of timeline for these things, that's harder to say because there are a lot of factors that influence that now. What we've seen over the past 12 months is that these things can move really quickly if the funding and resources are provided. Now, obviously, over the past 12 months, we've been dealing with a sort of unprecedented situation, and there's been billions of dollars thrown at research into developing a COVID vaccine and lots of resources put towards it. And so that's managed to, come about in sort of 12 months. But so the timeline generally is much longer than that. And there are hurdles along the way. I mean, generally we'd be looking at best case scenario 5 years, but probably longer than that would be my guess to go through all of these different steps, because each of those steps has a lot of things that need to happen. Firstly, funding needs to be generated. Now, there is a biotech company that's involved in that, so they may already have a bit of funding. That may be slightly easier than in academic circumstances where they need to find funding to proceed. They may already have some. Then they need to find participants, go through the recruitment, then go through the length of the trial, analyze the results, publish the results, and then decide whether they're going on to the next phase, and then the process repeats. So it is quite a lengthy process. The better the results in the lead up, the quicker that process is, because people can see that there is potential and they want to pursue it more. So if they've got really positive results, and I would say that these results are exciting, but certainly the more results they get, the more evidence, the more likely they are to receive that funding and buy-in and resources and then proceed quicker. But it's not something, and I would be more than happy to be proven wrong for this, but it's not something that we're going to see in phase 3 clinical trials in the next couple of years. It's a few years down the track yet. Hopefully that answers your question. Colleen, I'm on Tecfidera, so will it depend on the treatments we are on as to if it can help? Colleen, great question. I can't answer that question yet. We just don't have the evidence for that or any data on that yet. That's going to be something that we will need to look at, or the researchers will need to look at as they go through. It will be interesting to see whether or not, if it does get to a phase 2, phase 3 clinical trial, whether they first test this in people who aren't on any MS treatments at the time. My guess is that that may be the case. And then they will see, because really, as it stands at the moment, it's similar-ish in terms of how the other treatments work. It's just, they're all working for the same thing of stopping the immune response. The advantage of this, and we have no idea whether it will be more powerful or less powerful or anything like that. But I guess one of the key advantages of this is that it's much more targeted. And so we would expect, and again, we don't have any data in humans yet. I can't stress that enough. So I'm sort of talking hypothetically about a lot of this. But what we would expect is that there would be less side effects associated with it. You're not dampening down or suppressing the entire immune system. And so, some of the things that we see because of that with other treatments you may avoid with this. But in terms of whether or not, it can be used in combination with other therapies or anything like that, it's not something that we can answer at this stage, but it is a really good question, and it is something that they will be thinking about as they continue on through this process. Jody, my son and I are both on Ocrevus. A vaccine would make our life so much better. Well, for anyone, I guess. Yeah, so I guess, again, we're talking hypotheticals, but I'm going to assume everyone's happy for me to talk a little bit in hypotheticals on this because, we don't have the data. But I guess what we would hope for something like this is that it's something where you get more of a long-term effect that's sustained. So it's not needing to keep topping up, not where we're needing transfusions regularly, injections regularly, not taking a regular tablet or anything like that. That potentially, it should just be, or hopefully could be at a stage where, 1 or 2 doses of it then lead to quite a sustained effect, because those cells, we would hope couldn't then return back on. That once they're made tolerant, they stay tolerant. Now, is there going to be something else that happens if we take it out long enough? We don't know that yet, because again, these were short-term studies done in these animals, so we don't have long-term effects beyond that to know really what would happen out to a year or 2 years. That will be done in the clinical trials. Maureen's interested in hearing from the researchers. That's great. Annette, thanks for your explanation. Would be keen for Q&A with the researchers. Excellent. Kylie, if you have more than one autoimmune disease in addition to MS, would this vaccine be beneficial for that too? Good question. So again, we don't have the data, but I'm a bit more confident in terms of answering this from a hypothetical perspective. The likelihood is no, because as I said, The mRNA, which is being used in this, is for myelin proteins. So, what's the immune system's being made tolerant against that myelin protein that's given. Now, as I said, it seems to be in this study anyway to start with that it also generates some tolerance for some related proteins. But it's not a broad effect. So, if we take something like diabetes, for example, type 1 diabetes, where we get an autoimmune response against cells in the pancreas, I wouldn't expect that there would be crossover there, for example, because what's being given isn't related in a close enough way for that to happen. So I wouldn't expect that would happen. I wouldn't expect that this one vaccine would work against multiple autoimmune diseases. What I would say is that it will be interesting to see how this technology is used for other autoimmune diseases. So a very similar approach could be taken as the one that they've done here to then do in other autoimmune diseases. So if there was an autoimmune disease where they knew the target or a potential target, they could use mRNA for that and then see the results. So create tolerance against, as I said, if it's something in the pancreas or something elsewhere in the body, depending on the autoimmune disease, they could use a similar strategy. This strategy isn't necessarily MS specific. The MS specific part of it is the fact that they used mRNA for myelin proteins. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question, Kylie. Let me know if you've got more around that. Colleen's interested in learning more. Great. Wendy, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Jody, thanks for answering those. No worries. Hope it helped. Kylie, thank you for clarifying the research. I appreciate all the work being done. No worries at all. Hopefully it clears it up. Now, Kylie, I think you're also relatively new to MStranslate, are you? I think I saw a notification that you started following us recently. If so, how did you come across MStranslate? Always interested to know how people are finding it, finding us. Kylie, thank you for answering my question. That makes sense. Fantastic. I'm glad that I was able to answer that. Erin, do the mice being researched have different types of MS? In other words, are they talking about a vaccine related to RRMS, PPMS, etc.? Yeah, really good question. So generally, I mean, it's worth saying that the EAE, which stands for, I just decided, am I going to explain what EAE is? Experimental autoimmune encephalomyelitis. There you go, I got it out. EAE, as we call it. Much easier to say. I should have just stuck with that. And I'm very interested to know what the captions came up with for that. Is a model that mimics. Okay, so we need to be careful about how we talk about it. It's an animal model of multiple sclerosis, but it's not exactly the same. It shares a lot of the characteristics, and so it is a really good model for studying it, but it's not exactly the same. In terms of does it mostly resemble some of the types, I would say it's probably more likely relapsing remitting. We do see that sort of phase in it, and there are different animal models for MS. The one I'm just talking about, one of them. There are other ones as well that weren't used as part of this study at this point. I would say it's more like a relapsing remitting disease than progressive, which is not to say that this vaccine wouldn't necessarily be beneficial in progressive MS patients, but that's something that we don't have any information about how effective it is in different patients. So, likelihood at the moment as well, based on what we think is happening in those different phases, there may be a leaning towards that this would be more effective early on, and we would think about trying to give this early on anyway, which PPMS, we'll talk about that in a second, but if this was an effective treatment, you would want to give this as soon as possible to people. But yeah, in relapsing remitting, in terms of primary progressive, it's a really good question. We don't know yet. If there is an autoimmune component going on, it should be beneficial, but we don't have that information yet. So maybe that's, I could go on talking about that for hours and giving you my thoughts and theories and hypotheses, but we don't. The easiest thing probably to say at this stage is that we don't have that information yet. In terms of the animal model, as I said, it's probably more relapsing remitting, but in terms of effectiveness across different types, we'll wait and see on that. But if you do want to know more, ask. I just, I like hearing the sound of my own voice, but I don't always know that everyone else wants to hear me rabbit on for ages with my theories. So yeah, Sally, always great information from the Drummond Bros. Thank you, glad that you're enjoying it, and welcome back. You're always participating in these, which is fantastic. It's great to see you here. Claudia, hi, welcome. Again, a new name. There's a lot of new names that I'm seeing tonight, which is fantastic. Claudia, how did you find out about MStranslate? Where are you dialing in from? Well, where are you watching from? Always good to know where our followers are coming in from. Erin, no worries. Hope that helped answer your question. I will happy to keep answering some questions on this study because this is the main thing that I wanted to talk about tonight. So if anyone does have any other, I can see that there's still lots of people watching. So if anyone does have any further questions, please do ask. If you, hi Claudia, saw us on Facebook, have MS from Melbourne. Well, welcome. We are also Melbourne based, so we're nice and local. So glad that you could find us. Hope that you find MStranslate useful. And please do ask, as I said, ask us any questions that you may have. If for people who are just joining now, if you've missed the start of this discussion, this video does get published to our Facebook page once we finish. And so you will be able to watch it all back. It will stay there, and so you can watch it at any time. Hi, Christine. Welcome again, Christine. Maybe new to MStranslate. I don't know that I've seen you in a Facebook Live before, so welcome. If you are new, let us know where you're watching from. Let us know how you found MStranslate. All I'm saying at the moment is if anyone does have any questions, we've just been talking about the mRNA vaccine study as a potential therapy for multiple sclerosis. If anyone's seen that covered somewhere online or they watched my earlier video on it and they have questions, please do ask. I'm happy to answer a few more on that. Before I move on, I've just got a few other little things that I was going to present an update on or answer any other general questions that people might have. But happy to keep talking about this a little bit as we move forward. Just scroll back up to get the comments. Great that everyone's commenting. Keep commenting, everyone. This is fantastic. Love hearing from all of you. Sally, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for the kind words. Maureen, is there any way we can help with research, e.g. funding? Great question. And I could do a whole separate Facebook Live around that question. So let me give you a brief answer as well as I can do brief answers. And then maybe we could do another Facebook Live on that later. So the very short answer to your question is yes, there is lots that the MS community can be doing to help research. I would say let's start with the easiest things to do. I think one of the easiest things to do and one of the best things to do is being involved in something like this, showing that you're engaged in research. So, when content is published about MS research that you think is interesting, instead of just looking at it, going, that's great, and scrolling past it, like it, comment on it, share it. I think that that's a really simple thing that you can do to help research, because the more researchers can show that there is public interest in what they do, the more they're going to engage in activities where they talk about their work, but also the more likely they are to be able to pursue the research that they're doing. So that's a really simple thing in a way that you can do. The second thing, which I guess is relatively simple as well and sort of linked, but what a lot of people probably don't do that much, is use your voice. Speak up when you think that there is research that should be done and you don't think it's getting enough attention, or there are questions that need to be answered that you don't think anyone's looking into. Speak up about it, because one of the things I'm really passionate about is that the MS community is exceptionally powerful in terms of being able to shape research directions and accelerate progress. And that's by just, as I said already, being engaged, but also talking about things. Asking questions, because what we've found when we do these Q&As with other researchers is that often there's information that's provided by people living with MS that the researchers aren't necessarily aware of, and that helps them frame their research questions, come up with new directions to explore. So that's another way that can really help the researchers, just by active, engaged, and speaking up for things that you think are important. Beyond that, I would say the next thing, there are two other things. One is funding, and then, funding is always going to be a big thing for research. Now, I would love us to be in a position where we didn't need people living with MS to be the ones funding research into MS, and we're always investigating ways that we can be involved in that space and helping out. But there is always, ways to go about that. And one thing that we've talked about before is maybe looking at crowdfunding for research studies, where at least you get to specifically target the projects that you want to support. But obviously, there are different organisations that you can donate to, which may help fund some research. But I think the other big thing in terms of helping research beyond that is trial participation and being involved in studies. So there are researchers who are constantly looking for people to participate in their studies, and study recruitment is really difficult. And so we work with a lot of them to try and help with that. So I guess that's probably one of the biggest ways that you can contribute. Now, that's not saying to participate in every clinical trial that becomes available, because clinical trials are obviously can be quite intense and lots of people won't be eligible for them. But there are lots of different research studies that are available that can be, the participation in them may not take a lot of effort. That may just be an online study survey that they want you to complete, once every couple of weeks. Things like that, being aware of research studies, and if something becomes available that you can participate in, do participate and encourage others around you. I guess that's probably the other thing, is, if you're watching this video and 20 other people living with MS that you're in a peer support group with, or that you just know in your network who would benefit from it, let them know. Invite them along. We have all of these networks, but often we don't necessarily encourage others to participate as well. So, those are probably the main things. I don't know that I did a great job of keeping that brief, but I did give warning before that. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question a little bit, Maureen. Let me scroll back through comments now. Claudia, have relapsing remitting. Welcome, as I said, welcome. I hope you do really find benefit from what we do. You can find out more information about MStranslate via the website, but also if you have any questions about who we are in general, feel free to ask during this as well. Nat's from Taipei, Taiwan. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Again, interested to know how you found out about MStranslate. Tanya, thanks. Colleen, thanks for the information. Much appreciated. Wendy, copy to Facebook MS Carers Group. Maureen, thanks for answering my question. Christine, I work at RMH and have relapsing remitting. Okay, well, another Melbourne person, so welcome. We're also based in Melbourne, so welcome. Kelly, Brett, do you believe there will be a cure in the next 5 or 10 years? It depends how we talk about a cure. is my question to that. If you're talking about a cure in terms of the traditional way that we think about a cure, I think that's unlikely in the next 5 to 10 years. And the reason for that is just because we still don't really know what causes MS. We have different parts of that puzzle. We know there are certain environmental factors that seem to play a role. We know there are certain genetic factors that play a role, but we don't really know how that all fits together yet. So I think it's unlikely until we know all of that we're going to find a traditional cure. Now, as Eric's correctly predicted, because he knows me far too well, I think that we could redefine what we mean in terms of a cure for MS. And so if we think about a cure more as being really effective management of the disease. So what we have at the moment, we're now at a stage where we have a number of therapies that can be quite powerful in terms of stopping new damage and slowing the progression, especially some of the newer ones. But we have a lot of different options now, and while we know that not everyone will find a treatment that works for them, generally we have a lot, and a lot of people will benefit from that in terms of being able to stop new damage from occurring. So that's where we're at the moment. The next phase of things that are coming through, and where a lot of the research is being done, is on remyelination or myelin repair. And so in this instance, we've got those first class of therapies that I talked about that are stopping new damage. If we can get effective therapies that can repair the myelin, then we've got a twofold treatment approach here, where we're stopping new damage from occurring, which is great, we're slowing progression, but at the same time we're repairing damage that exists. And in that case, what we might start to see is that we can actually reverse some of the symptoms. So instead of just slowing things down, we're actually improving. We're trying to get things back to the way they were before MS. Now, we don't have enough data yet to know how well those myelin repair therapies will work, but if we find one that works really well, then that's a really effective combination where you could be using both of those therapies to stop new damage, repair the damage that had existed. And so my analogy for this, just to sort of clarify what I mean here, I often talk about this in terms of, imagine that you come home, and I don't know why I use an example where I have a basement. This is coming from a movie or something, but imagine you come home and you find that your basement is flooded. The pipes have leaked, water's going everywhere, you've got huge puddles on the ground. The treatments that we have at the moment are essentially blocking those pipes up. So they're stopping water from continuing to flood into that basement. Okay, that's what the treatments are doing at the moment. We're stopping more flooding from happening. We're stopping more damage from occurring, or slowing that down as much as possible. But even if we could stop that completely, we've still got all of that water on the ground, and nothing that we have at the moment is effectively, getting rid of that. So we've still got that problem there. We haven't fixed the flooding. We've stopped it from getting worse. We've slowed it from getting worse, but we're not getting an unflooded basement. And so what those myelin repair therapies will do is essentially now we're taking a bucket and we're getting rid of all of the water that's there so that we can go back to where we were at the start when we had a basement that wasn't filled with water. We're continuing to block up those pipes because we've still got that problem, but we've got a way where we can stop it from leaking into the basement, but now we're also getting rid of it. So that would be the combination of those two things coming together. In that article, I also talk about a third arm to that, which I think is really important, and that's maintaining a healthy internal environment. And so we've got more and more information coming out now about how important diet is, how important exercise is. And so I think there will be these other factors, lifestyle modifiable factors, that will be important to be doing while having each of those therapies so that everything works as well as it can. So I think in that case, if we had all of those things, then, you know, while it's not a cure because the disease is still there, we're really effectively managing it, and possibly managing it to the point where we're taking it back, we're reversing it. And so I think that, you know, that is a cure, for want of a better phrase. Will that be around in 5 to 10 years? That's certainly more possible. All of the people that we talk to who are in the remyelination space think that having a remyelination therapy, at least in clinical trials, late stage clinical trials within the next 5 years, is definitely feasible. And there's a lot of hope that, you know, maybe we will actually have something available within that time frame as well. There's lots of studies going on that. We did an interview recently with Dr. Will Brown from the University of Cambridge, who was talking about a clinical trial that actually failed for remyelination, but in that video as well, he talks about another compound that they'll be testing soon. So there is a lot of work going on in that space. You've all heard from Dr. Travis Stiles before, from Novaron in San Diego. They're working on their remyelination therapy. So there is lots going on in that space. So hopefully that answers your question. Sorry, Kelly, it was quite a long-winded explanation, but hopefully that was a good answer for you. I'm just going to have a drink of water. I've been talking a little bit too much. So let me just scroll back through these. So Kathy's talking about the headbands. I made a point that we're not going to talk about them. We've got too much interesting MS research to talk about tonight to talk about my hairstyles, and Eric will jump in if we talk about it too much. So we're just gonna, yeah, it's still there. How much longer we don't know, but it's still there at the moment. And we've still got the facial hair going on as well. Bit Bear Grylls. Haven't had that comparison before. Not too much survival skills needed in Melbourne at the moment, but capable of getting my food from Coles and Woolworths. Don't need to forage yet, but we'll see. Nat, is there anything out there that rebuilds myelin? So I guess, I probably partly answered that question already, Nat, with what I was just saying. There are lots of potential things out there that rebuild myelin, and there are different researchers looking into lots of different avenues for that. There is nothing out there that is approved yet for treatment in MS. For repairing myelin. So nothing on the market yet, nothing available as therapy, but there are certainly lots of things that are being looked into in that area, and lots of research, and we know it's a huge area of interest for the MS community. So when there is stuff that's coming out, we're publishing on it a lot. So the other therapy that Will talks about is metformin, which we've published on before. I've done a video summary of that. Eric might be able to drop that into the chat as well, so that people can watch that if they're interested. It certainly was something that people were really interested in when we first published it. Again, it was just an animal study at this stage. So hopefully that answers your question, Nat. If you want to know more, please do ask again. Sally Ann, so interesting. When I was diagnosed in 1993, there were no DMTs. Now there are so many new highly effective therapies. Yeah, certainly. I mean, the last 10 years especially, we've seen a number of new therapies become available, and also probably fair to say that they've become quite a bit more powerful. Some of the new therapies, cladribine, Tysabri, fingolimod, all of these are quite powerful. So yeah, I mean, we are getting a lot of new therapies that are working really well in terms of that space. It will be interesting to see how much more we can do. Now, obviously, the mRNA vaccine is something that could be very interesting in that area. But I think the next phase now will be moving away to those remyelination therapies. I think that's really the next step, and hopefully we see the same sort of development that we saw with the disease-modifying therapies, is that we can get a number of different myelin repair therapies that are effective and are on the market to give options. Because in the same way that we know that these existing therapies don't necessarily work for everyone, but having multiple options means that we can find the one that does. It would be great to have the same sort of thing for myelin repair therapies. So, yeah, so I guess that's, in terms of the mRNA vaccine, I guess we've done a large summary of that. Happy to answer any other questions that people have. I know I've already been talking for a bit over an hour, and I can see that, you know, we've still got quite a few people watching, maybe a few less than we did at the start, but that's fine. A few people dropped off lately. It is starting to get, I mean, it's 8 o'clock here in Melbourne. For our friends in New Zealand, it's later. Others around the world, obviously, different times, but it's probably starting to get a bit late for a lot of people in this area, but happy to keep answering questions. So if you do have questions, I mean, you may have seen on MStranslate recently, we did other research that we've talked about. Aside from the mRNA vaccine study, we had talked about a study into cannabis oils and their safety and effectiveness in a small group of people with MS that was published out of Denmark. We had a study out of China that was looking at pomegranate peel extract and the benefits of that in an animal model of MS and how that may be related to the gut microbiome. There has been lots of interesting research papers published over the past little while on cognition in MS. Is this something you'd like us to cover more? Lots of things going on in that space. Tell me if there are topics you want me to cover more. Thanks, Jody. No worries at all. Great to have you on board for this. I hope to see you again. We will be doing these regularly. We will have special guests on these a bit more this year. We'll start talking about that soon. We will have some exciting news coming over the next little while. And yeah, we'll have other people so you don't just have to hear from me all the time. But glad that you've enjoyed it. Great to have you as part of it. Thank you for all of your participation, and same with you, Maureen. Certainly my pleasure. Thank you for joining. Thank you for all of your questions and really insightful comments. It's been fantastic to have so much participation throughout. There has been fantastic numbers watching and lots of questions and comments, which is amazing. So I might just, Sally, like to know more about cognition. Okay, fantastic. I mean, there has been a few things on there. Kimberly, cognition was my main issue. Maureen, more cognition. Debbie, definitely interested in more research on cognitive problems. Okay, well, we can definitely make that a focus. As I said, there's been quite a bit published, and we know there's quite a bit going on in that space. So we'll make a point of doing some more work on that, providing some more coverage of that. And as you can see there, Eric's just dropped the link for a recent article that we did, which is just some brief summaries of that cannabis oil study and the pomegranate peel extract study. As we sort of floated at the end of last year, we were going to do, sorry, just had a bit of a mind blank for a second. We're going to do some research articles where we do, instead of just having some study covered in one article, we're going to do these ones a little bit where we do shorter summaries of the research, but where we cover 2 or 3 studies in a single article, which just allows us to talk to you about more different types of research. There is lots going on, but as always, if you see something in there and you have questions or you want to know more information, let us know, and then we can do a more detailed article, or if it comes up during a Facebook Live, then obviously I can answer the questions during that as well. So happy to take any more questions that people have, or comments, anything that people want to know more about, anything that you've seen online. Part of any groups that would benefit from having me talk. If you're part of a peer support group and you'd like to have me as a guest speaker, let me know. If you're part of any Facebook groups and you'd like me to do a Facebook Live for that group, let me know. Happy to do all of those activities this year. So any of that sort of stuff, just comment below. I can see that we have quite a few, so if you're just joining us now, welcome. We have been talking about the mRNA vaccine study and clarifying some things around that. And you can go back and watch this, you can go back and watch this at any point. It will be published to the Facebook page, so you will be able to see all of that discussion if you want to. I guess another study that we've focused on, or we published a link to recently, was on memory dysfunction. So that was happening in the US. So there was some information about that a few days ago on MStranslate, which you can go back and look up. So I'll just give a few more minutes. As I said, if anyone's got any questions, I'll let you guide the discussion now. If you do have any questions, comments, let me know. Happy to stay on for a little bit longer and answer those. Sally, thanking Eric for the link. Eric will probably say you're welcome. I'll just say that he said you're welcome. He's doing a great job, always helps me out with these a lot. Margaret, so if you've taken Gilenya, moved to Ocrevus and now on Mavenclad, what is next? Yeah, look, good question. Again, I mean, I think, unfortunately, and I know I've sort of given you these answers before, and I know I've given a number of other people in our community this answer before on a number of occasions, but you know, in terms of that sort of stuff, in terms of treatment decisions, it's not really something I can comment on hugely, as I'm don't have a clinical background. I'm not a neurologist. I don't have that training, so it's hard to make those comments in terms of, you know, other therapies that may be applicable. It's too hard to say, I guess. You know, it's hard to say in terms of what's in that space. Obviously, there are different options. You know, we've got lists of all of the different therapies that are around, and different things in that space. But as I said, what I will think will be another interesting thing that we haven't talked about at all, and that's not to say that this is applicable in your situation at all, Margaret, but I guess the treatment option that we haven't talked about at all tonight is HSCT. And I guess HSCT fitting in with the stopping damage line of therapies. We also, there you go, Lauren's just asked a question on it. HSCT in that sort of area mesenchymal stem cells in terms of the myelin repair area. You know, those are different topics, and it will be interesting to see how they continue to develop. I guess I'll just, so Carol, I've seen your question. I'll come to it in a second. Sorry, Margaret, I apologize. I know that's, you know, not a great answer to your question. Just unfortunately difficult for me to answer questions like that. So Carol, I've seen your question. I'm just going to answer Lauren's question first, as it's related to what I just talked about. Will HSCT be available in Australia soon? Again, a good question. I mean, so it is available here at the moment in terms of clinical trials. I believe there are clinical trials for it going on for MS at St Vincent's in Sydney, I believe. They have just opened up a new centre there that I think is going to be a lot specifically focused on treatments like that, not just for MS, but for other areas as well. But certainly MS will be part of that. In terms of when it will be you know, beyond just the clinical trial, will it be a treatment option? It's tough. I mean, the only place that I'm aware of at the moment, and I could be wrong just in terms of, I mean, we have the centres where it's being available commercially as a therapy. The only place that I'm aware of, and again, I haven't looked at this super recently, so my information may not be 100% correct on this, but I do know that Scotland, I believe, has approved it through their NHS scheme as a treatment for MS. That's the only place I know where they've actually gone to that level. You know, I need to look more into what's happening in other parts of the world, but I think it is still just being used mostly as trials, and then you have the centres that I guess are offering it, private centres that are offering it, if people will pay for that. In terms of, you know, I think we're getting to a point with HSCT where there is a lot of data to suggest it can be a really effective therapy for some people living with MS. You know, when that translates to getting, you know, government approval, regulatory approval, things like that, that's tough to say. Sorry, I don't know if I answered that question great or very well, Lauren, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. Carol, your thoughts on coronavirus vaccine and medical marijuana benefits for MS? Let me start with the COVID vaccine and give you an answer that, again, probably isn't necessarily what you're looking for. General information about the coronavirus vaccine and how it works is at the start of the video, and you'll be able to watch that later. In terms of whether or not people with MS should be getting the coronavirus vaccine, that's not something I can talk about. Again, I just don't have the clinical background. I don't think it's appropriate for me to talk about it. We don't have any research data yet on the COVID-19 vaccine in people living with MS for me to be able to comment on in terms of seeing the effectiveness, seeing side effects or anything like that. So I can't really comment. What I will say is that the major MS organizations around the world have released their thoughts and guidelines based on, most of them have got together teams of neurologists who have sat down, discussed, and come up with their statements, I guess, or guidelines on that. So the US has released theirs recently. The UK has one out, MSIF has one out, and MS Australia is, I believe, referring to the MSIF guidelines. We've got a page on our website that just provides links to those organisational guidelines, and that's really all we can comment on at that stage. When we know more, I'll be happy to comment more in terms of if there's data that's released, I'll be happy to comment on that. But yeah, we don't have that at this stage. In terms of your other question, in terms of medical marijuana benefits for MS, it's an interesting question because I think we do have quite a bit of evidence now to see that medical marijuana or medicinal cannabis can certainly have some benefits for certain symptoms for people living with MS. The main ones being pain and spasticity. So there have been a number of studies that have looked into that and have shown that the use of these in different sorts of compounds around this can have benefits in that space. There was one in the article that Eric posted recently. There is a short summary of a research study that's come out of Denmark recently that looked into cannabis oils. It was only in a small group of people, but in that they did see that the use of these cannabis oils were both safe and well tolerated, but at the same time also saw that it did seem to reduce pain and spasticity again. So those two symptoms that we've seen other studies show evidence of. They also saw that the people who were using the cannabis oils found that they had a reduction in sleep disturbances. Importantly, at the same time, they also saw that there was no effect on things like disability and cognition and things like this from using the cannabis oils. So I think the more evidence we get, there is more studies becoming available that shows that these compounds are relatively safe, relatively well tolerated, and can have some benefits for some symptoms in people living with MS. In terms of whether that will lead to regulatory approval or things like that, that's a hard question to answer. The latest I sort of saw on that was still that they didn't think that the evidence was strong enough. I'm interested to know what more they would want to see for that, but we'll see in that. Margaret, always appreciate your input and the efforts of you and your team to have an impact on behalf. Thanks, Margaret. As I said, I'm sorry that I can't answer those questions. I'd love to be able to, and I know that people are really hoping to get better comments out of it than that. But yeah, as I said, thank you for the kind words, and I hope all is well with you and your family. I know we've talked a lot offline as well, so best wishes, and hope that 2021 is a good year for all of you. Kimberly, thanks Brett, thanks Eric, always nice to hear your thoughts and research on these issues. Take care. Thanks Kimberly, thanks for joining us tonight. Glad that you found it useful. Certainly stay tuned because I'm sure we'll be doing more of these soon. Carol, what about vascular jugular angioplasties? I've had 2 before, had instant walking benefit, but sadly it didn't last for more than a couple of weeks, called CCSVI. Yeah, so this has been something that has been looked into in multiple sclerosis for a while. It really gained, I guess, a lot of popularity after an initial study came out by an Italian doctor called Paolo Samboni, who said he saw benefits when he treated his wife using it. It saw some other follow-up where he saw benefits. Unfortunately, in terms of the studies that went on to do that, they didn't seem to replicate the same results in terms of finding it in the same number of people living with MS. So there are still small studies going on around the world. Zamboni ended up saying that he couldn't replicate his own results. So, there has been interest in the area. There's nothing conclusive. I know there was a study being done around Melbourne looking into it. I haven't seen the finally published results of that. But generally, I think a lot of studies have found that it doesn't seem to be that effective. It may be something that could be effective for a percentage of people living with MS, but yeah, it certainly hasn't been something that's we've got conclusive evidence on, and if anything, a lot of the follow-up evidence seems to suggest that it's maybe not. Maggie would love to hear, welcome Maggie, thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from the research team that did this study. I will be contacting them fingers crossed that we hear back and that they're interested in participating. Kelly, thank you. I'm new to MStranslate. We'll spend some time catching up. Thanks again. You're welcome, Kelly. Thank you for participating. It's great to have so many new people joining us tonight. I'm glad that you found it useful. I hope that you found it useful. And we'll be doing many more of these events soon, so please do join us. And whenever we're posting articles, please do comment beneath them with any questions that you have. I will make sure that I do answer anything that we receive. Thanks, Erin. Glad that you enjoyed tonight. You enjoyed hearing these. Thanks for your questions. I'm glad that you now know about MStranslate. Please tell anyone who you know who may be interested in also following MStranslate. Please do tell them. We have a presence across all our social media platforms, so as well as Facebook. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put up some unique content there. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, we're on all of those platforms. So thank you again for joining us. Thanks for your participation. Debbie, would it be possible to get someone who can talk to us about what questions to ask our neurologists about treatments, risks, options, and does the research done represent our age groups? That last one I can do. I can certainly start to include that information in the summaries that I do, in terms of including the sort of age groups for people that were included in the studies if they were done using people living with MS. I can certainly do that one. And the other one, yeah, great idea. Certainly an idea that we can look into. I've already got some ideas on that. So take it as a yes, we will do that. We'll just think about who it might be in our network, and we will have more people joining. You will see other faces on MStranslate more this year, I think. That's my little teaser for news that we'll have coming, that I've been teasing for a little while, but we will be, I promise you, we will actually be revealing all soon. So yes, no, great idea, and yes, we can do that, and we will look to do that. So we're getting in on the hour-and-a-half mark. I am always shocked that people are willing to listen to me for that long. So thank you. If you've been here from the start, genuinely thank you for joining in. If you tuned in during it, if you've only just tuned in, thank you as well. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion tonight. As I said, mostly I hope that we've given some clarity around this mRNA study, because it was concerning to me to see a lot of the misinformation that was being written, and this wasn't done deliberately, it was just people were confused. But I hope that we've managed to clear that up a lot, so that people understand the differences between the study that's been gaining attention and the coronavirus vaccine that's being rolled out. Hopefully it's answered a lot of questions around that. So, thank you all for your participation. I'll wait another few minutes just to see if there's any last questions coming through. If you are watching and you do have a last question that you want to ask about the mRNA vaccine study, about MS research in general, about MStranslate in general, feel free to ask. I'll wait another couple of minutes. If we have a minute or two where there's no new questions coming through, I will say goodnight and finish the broadcast. But happy to just give one last little chance. Kathy, I know this isn't specific questions, but this guide is something that I use all the time. It's usually 3 to 6 months between visits, and this document is incredibly helpful to jot down questions you have in between visits. Can't add it, we'll send it to me. Okay, thanks Kathy. Yeah, send it through to us, and that's something we can look to share with the community. Thank you. I'm sure people will find that really helpful. Thank you, Debbie. Thanks for your participation as always. Great to have you join in. Hope you're well. Hope all of the, just as sort of closing message, I gave a Christmas or New Year message last year, but hopefully everyone is well, regardless of where you are tuning in around the world. We know that still lots of parts of the world are doing it really tough. So just take this opportunity from myself and Eric to send our best wishes to every member of our community in all corners of the world. We hope that you and your families are staying safe and are doing well. And that, we hope that 2021 is a better year for everyone than 2020 was. As I said, we'll continue to be doing new and exciting things in the MStranslate space, but most of all, we just really hope that everyone is doing well and continues to do so. That's the most important thing. So yeah, as it doesn't seem like there are any more questions coming through, I will say nighty night. And thank you once again all for your participation. It's been a pleasure as always. As I say repeatedly when I do these, I love doing these events. I really enjoy them. It's so pleasing for me to be able to have these conversations, to see such fantastic questions, to be able to have this interaction. I really enjoy it. It's such a great part of what I do, and feel so privileged really to be able to get to do it, and that people actually enjoy it as well. So thank you for your participation. We look forward to doing it again soon. As always, if you do have any questions, please do send them to our Facebook page or email them through, and we look forward to talking again soon. All right, thanks everyone.